I just sort of draw a couple of points from what Emma's just said, and I think the essence is really that we do need to work together, all of us. We do need to recognise we have to work with people that own land in the countryside, both farmers and landowners, if we're going to get anywhere in terms of making progress. But it's important we do. And the other thing is to recognise that you're part of a huge proportion, a huge majority of the British public that are totally against badger culling. So everybody you speak to, I think you'll find most of them will be on your side. So don't be afraid to spread the word. Take the initiatives like Emma's just said. Get the word out there, get people on side, get people to take action, because you find that the majority of people that care will take the trouble to help us and support us. I'm now going to introduce to you Ivor Annetts. Ivor, I believe, was a trustee of League Against Cruel Sports locally in Devon. And the only other way he wants me to introduce him is to tell you that he's called Mr. Angry now, because he's really angry about what's been happening.
Owen! I'll give you a hint. Maggie! Owen! 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 Thank you very much. I have just a friendly message for the police officers who are gathered amongst us. I think their journey has been unnecessary, but we understand why they're there. I just want to tell them that we are a peaceful bunch of people. We are law-abiding. But as the introducer to me said, we are bloody angry at what is going on. And we will demonstrate our anger during the afternoon and during our march, and we will let the people of Exeter know of our anger, and we will attempt to get them to join us. But we are peaceful, so the police are not necessary here. I'm very pleased to see them, and I hope you will be persuaded by some of the arguments that are put before you this afternoon. Next time you come, and we hope you change your uniform. Thank you very much. The purpose of my remarks is to try and make sense of the shambles in which we find ourselves this afternoon. 6:30 this morning, I was tweeting, and somebody, the League had retweeted something, and finally the last piece of the jigsaw fell into place for me, and I have a tenable theory to explain this utter shambles that has happened. But we're going to start off in 2007. In 2007, the independent scientific group that was reporting to David Miliband at the time, it cost us £50 million, it took 9 years to do. There were 90 areas of land over 100 kilometres, 11,000 badgers were slaughtered in order to come up with a statistical result. And there were two recommendations from that, which was reported to David Miliband. The first one, everybody knows this one, that badger culling can make no reasonable contribution to the control of TB in cattle. The second one, which I'm going to quote to you, to my mind, has never received the sort of publicity that it should receive. And it is from the chairman's covering letter to David Miliband. This is Sir Richard Bourne, Sir John Bourne, I beg his pardon, in 2007, writing to David Miliband, covering letter. Scientific findings indicate that the rising incidence of disease can be reversed and geographical spread contained by the rigid application of cattle-based control measures alone. Now, I don't think there's been much publicity on that. And when I looked further into this, I began to understand why there has not been much publicity into this, because if you look at the chairman's interview and the chairman's overview in the same document, you get this paragraph. The ISG, the Independent Scientific Group, recognises the difficulties faced by government in implementing control strategies without full industry cooperation. It is unfortunate that agricultural and veterinary leaders continue to believe, in spite of overwhelming scientific evidence to the contrary, that the main approach to cattle TB control must involve some form of badger population control. So what I'm putting to you is that we haven't heard anything about that, because they didn't think that the government knew at the time they couldn't do it, because they wouldn't have the cooperation of the farming community and the vets. And so all of this has been, I believe, brushed under the carpet. The next thing that happens, time passes on and we get a Conservative government, a coalition government, I do beg its pardon, sometimes it appears to be a Conservative government, and we get this elected in 2010, and a lady called Caroline Spellman is appointed as the Environment Secretary, and sometime in April 2011 she sets up a meeting with some more scientists, and this is sometimes pushed out as being the further advance of the ISG. It's not. It is the same statistics that came up in 2007. The evidence has been cherry-picked, and Caroline, at the end of this, Caroline Spellman, at the end of it all, she came up with a recommendation for badger culling completely contrary to what the ISG said 7 years previously. So what I put to you is, what kind of country are we living in when a meeting of scientists put together for one day comes to the exactly opposite conclusion to what a 9-year, £50 million survey did 7 years previously? It is almost unbelievable. Suddenly, in September 2012, Caroline is sacked. I suspect it's because of her gender, because we know what Mr. Cameron is like with women. He has some difficulty with them. So I was very quite pleased to hear, this woman is gone. And what I thought at the time was that Cameron had actually sussed her out, and this was a great embarrassment for the Conservative Party, the Lib Dems, the coalitions, and it can't. They realised that the badger cull could not go ahead. Imagine my surprise when parachuted in is a gentleman called Owen Patterson.
Gentleman.
He made short shrift of everything, and there was no doubt within a month or two that badger culling was still on the agenda. The top scientists in the country who deal with this were fully aware. They knew what was going on, and in October 2012 they wrote a letter to the Observer. 30 of them. Patrick Bateson, some of you will know that. Professor Stephen Harris from Bristol University. Rosie Woodruff, who speaks a lot on the subject. And I just quote to you. There's even one from Michigan, a professor from Michigan. Even the Yanks are telling us that what we're doing is crazy. This is absolutely ridiculous. So let me just quote to you what they said in this letter. The 30 experts. We recognise the importance of eradicating bovine TB and agree that this will require tackling the disease in badgers. Unfortunately, culling badgers, as planned, is very unlikely to contribute to TB eradication. We therefore urge the government to reconsider its strategy. What happened? Nothing. And the cull, as you know, went ahead. Shambles ensued. I don't want to get into the shambles. I'm sure somebody else will quote you with all the things that have been happening in that shambles. But immediately, fairly soon after that, Professor Lord Krebs, who designed the original ISG investigation, indicated that, his view that the most likely outcome of what's happening is that it will increase TB. And Rosie Woodruff said, culling low numbers of badgers over a prolonged period during these winter months are all associated with increased TB. So it's going to have exactly the opposite effect of what they said. Now for me, I just want to pretty well wrap up with this. For me, Owen Patterson condemned himself when speaking to an interview for Parliament's in-house magazine called The House during October last year. Interestingly enough, I couldn't pick this up in any of the national newspapers, but good old Western Morning News and the Western Daily Press carried it, and this is what this man said. So I'm used to, completely accustomed to, dealing with scientific advice, but ultimately you have to make a political decision. There's no absolute right in a scientific decision. We have some good advisors here who I respect enormously. But obviously, I have got my own sources outside, my own experience, which I have to draw on. Now, I find that extremely worrying. It's very dangerous, in fact, for our democracy, if you think about it. Here is this privileged man brought up in the countryside, goes to public school at Radley, goes on to Cambridge to read history, comes back, goes into business. In fact, he's in the leather business, makes some money, thinks he'll have a go at politics, becomes an MP, and a few years later finds himself as the Ministry of State for the Environment. And he is saying that his experience should take precedence over all of the scientists who have made it their life's work to study epidemiology, biology, and all the other ologies, and they know what's going on. But our Owen proclaims the right to make his own decision, and I think it's an absolute damn disgrace. Finally, 6:30 this morning, I came up with this quote, and it was John Bourne, who was the leader of the original investigation, and for me it was the final piece of the jigsaw which fell into place. And he said this in October 2012. I think the most interesting observation was made to me by a senior politician who said, "Fine, John, we accept your science, but we have to offer the farmers a carrot. And the only carrot we can possibly give them is culling badgers." I'll leave you to think about that. Thank you very much for listening. I'd like just to rehearse once more, make sure the people over there in those houses can hear what you're saying. Owen! Ah! Owen! Ah! Owen! 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 Thank you very much.